Walk into any apartment of someone in their mid-20s, and I can tell you exactly why they're going to be broke at 40. Not because they're lazy or stupid, but because of what's sitting in their living room and what's missing from their bank account. There's a $2,500 sectional couch from West Elm financed over 24 months, a 65-inch TV mounted on the wall that cost $1,100, a closet full of clothes with tags from brands that sound expensive. And when you ask them about their retirement account, their emergency fund, or their investment portfolio, you get this blank stare followed by, "Yeah, I really need to start doing that stuff." Here's what kills me about this. That same $2,500 they spent on a couch they'll get rid of in 5 years when they move, if they'd put it in an index fund at age 25, would be worth over $40,000 by the time they're 60. That $1,100 TV becomes $17,000. But instead, they're sitting on a fancy couch watching Netflix on a giant screen while their future self is working. Until they're 70 because they can't afford to retire. The stuff they bought makes their apartment look successful. But the stuff they didn't buy guarantees they'll never actually be successful. If you're in your 20s and you feel like you're making decent money but somehow never getting ahead, or if you're confused about what you should actually be spending money on, what I'm about to show you is going to make you rethink every purchase you've made in the past year, because there are 5 specific things worth buying in your 20s that will either generate massive returns or save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then there's everything else, which is just stealing from your future. My name is Mike, and I spend way too much time thinking about why people in their 20s will drop $3,000 on a vacation they'll barely remember in 5 years, but won't spend $500 on something that could add $200,000 to their lifetime earnings. If you're someone who works hard, makes decent money, but can't figure out why you're always broke by the end of the month, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you figure out where your money should actually be going, because what I'm about to break down isn't generic advice about investing in yourself or living below your means. We're going to look at 5 specific purchases with actual calculable returns. Things where I can show you the exact math of how much money you'll make or save over your lifetime. And more importantly, I'm going to show you why most people completely miss these purchases while wasting money on things that look good but build nothing. Here's something that's going to make you uncomfortable. The smartest car-related decision you can make in your 20s is buying a 5-8-year-old Honda or Toyota in cash and driving it until the wheels fall off. I'm talking about a 2016 Civic with 70,000 miles that costs $14,000. Not a new truck, not a luxury sedan, not even a certified pre-owned with a payment plan. A boring, reliable, paid-off car that gets you from point A to point B without making you look cool. And I already hear the objections. Mike, I need to look professional for my job. No, you need to not be broke for your life. Your boss doesn't care what you drive. Your coworkers aren't paying your bills. And the people who are impressed by your car aren't the people who matter. Here's the math everyone ignores. Right now, the average new car payment is $736 a month. Let's say you're 24 years old and you decide to always have a car payment for the rest of your life. Not unrealistic. Most Americans do exactly this. From 24 to 64, that's 40 years. 480 payments of $736. That's $353,280 in car payments over your lifetime. But wait, it gets worse. If instead of making those payments, you invested $736 a month in an S&P 500 index fund averaging 10% annually, you wouldn't have $350,280. You'd have $4.7 million. Let me say that slower. $4.7 million. The difference between always having a car payment and driving paid-off used cars is literally the difference between retiring a millionaire and retiring broke. And I'm not exaggerating even a little bit. That's just compound interest over 40 years. But Mike, used cars break down. I'll spend all my savings on repairs. Wrong. A well-maintained Honda Civic from 2016 with 70,000 miles will easily go another 130,000 miles with nothing but oil changes, tires, and brakes. Even if you spend $2,000 a year on maintenance, which is way higher than reality, that's still $167 a month versus $736. You're saving $569 a month, which over 40 years invested becomes $3.6 million. Still a multi-millionaire. The math doesn't lie. Here's what actually happens when you buy new cars your whole life. You're not just making payments, you're giving up the ability to build wealth during the exact years when compound interest is most powerful. That $736 you send to the bank every month could be going into investments, could be going into the next purchase on this list, could be building an emergency fund. So you stop living paycheck to paycheck, but instead, it's going toward a depreciating asset that loses 20% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot. The second smart purchase is investing in specific skills that directly increase your income. And I'm not talking about going back to school for a master's degree that costs $50,000 and might help you get a $5,000 raise. I'm talking about targeted skills training that has an immediate, measurable impact on your earning potential. Let me give you real examples with real numbers. You work in any kind of office environment. Learning advanced Excel, Power BI, and basic SQL costs you maybe $600 total for online courses and certifications. That skill set can increase your salary by $10,000 to $18,000 a year. You just turned $600 into $10,000 annually. That's a 1,666% return in year one. And it compounds for your entire career because your raises are percentage-based. If you're making $65,000 instead of $55,000 when you get your annual 3% raise, you're getting an extra $300 every single year on top of the initial $10,000 increase. Or let's say you're in marketing. Learning Google Ads, Facebook Ads, and Google Analytics certification costs under $1,000 total. These skills can increase your salary by $12,000 to $20,000, depending on your market. That's a 1,200% to 2,000% return in the first year. If you're a graphic designer, learning motion graphics and video editing adds $15,000 to $25,000 to your annual income. Investment? Maybe $800 in software and training. Here's the math that makes this insane. Let's say you're 26 making $52,000 a year. You invest $1,500 in skills training that bumps you to $65,000. That's $13,000 more per year. Over the next 38 years of your career, accounting for 3% annual raises on that higher base salary, you'll earn an additional $847,000 in lifetime income from a $1,200 investment. That's a 70,583% total return. Show me literally any other purchase you can make in your 20s that comes anywhere close to that. But here's what most people do instead. They spend $1,200 on a weekend in Vegas, or new clothes, or upgrading their phone every year. And look, I'm not saying never have fun, but when you understand that $1,200 spent on the right skills generates $847,000 over your career, and $1,200 spent on a Vegas weekend generates a hangover and some blurry photos, it changes how you think. The key is investing in skills that meet 3 criteria. 1, there's clear market demand right now. Go on LinkedIn, and Indeed, you should see job postings specifically asking for this skill. 2, the skill qualifies you for higher paying positions, not just marginal improvements in your current role. 3, you can demonstrate the skill to employers through certifications, portfolio work, or measurable results. If it meets all 3, buy it. If it doesn't, skip it. The third smart purchase is building a $5,000 to $10,000 emergency fund. And yes, I'm calling it a purchase because you're essentially buying insurance against making catastrophically stupid financial decisions when emergencies happen. Here's what I mean. You're 28, you don't have an emergency fund, and your car transmission dies. Repair cost, $2,800. You don't have $2,800 sitting around, so what are your options? Put it on a credit card at 24% APR and take a year to pay it off, during which you'll pay $3,234 total. Take a personal loan at 18% APR, go to a payday loan place and pay 400% APR because you're desperate and out of options. All 3 turn a $2,800 problem into a $30,200 to $4,500 problem. If you have an emergency fund, that $2,800 repair is just $2,800. You pay it, you're done, You rebuild the fund over the next few months. No interest, no debt, no making your financial situation worse while trying to solve a problem. According to the Federal Reserve, 37% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money. Not 37% of poor people, 37% of all Americans. That means more than 1 in 3 people you know is one minor crisis away from going into debt. And here's what's crazy. Most people in their 20s are in this category not because they don't earn enough money, but because they've never prioritized saving. They've got money for concerts, for eating out, for new clothes, for streaming services they barely use, but not for the one thing that would prevent financial catastrophes. The psychological value of having $8,000 sitting in an account you never touch except for real emergencies is massive. Car breaks down? Annoying, not catastrophic. Unexpected medical bill? Handled. Laptop dies and you need it for work? Covered. You sleep better at night. You make better financial decisions because you're not operating from a place of desperation. You don't have to beg family for money or make terrible choices because you have no options. That peace of mind is worth more than almost anything else you could buy. The fourth smart purchase is starting to invest in low-cost index funds as early as humanly possible in your 20s. And before you say, I don't have extra money, let me show you why even $150 a month starting at 24 beats $500 a month starting at 35. You're 24 years old. You start investing $150 a month into an S&P 500 index fund. That's $1,800 a year. You do this until you're 34, just 10 years, and then you stop completely. Never add another dollar, just let it grow. At 10% average annual return by the time you're 65, you'll have approximately $520,000. You contributed $18,000 total over 10 years, and it grew to over $500,000. Now, different scenario. You wait until you're 35 to start investing. But you're more financially stable, so you invest $300 a month from 35 to 65. That's 30 years of contributions totaling $108,000. At the same 10% return, you end up with about $678,000. You contributed 6 times as much money, invested for 3 times as long, and only ended up with $158,000 more. That's the power of starting early. Those 11 years from 24 to 35 are worth more than the next 20 years combined because of compound interest. Here's the math everyone needs to understand. Every dollar you invest at 25 has 40 years to compound before you retire at 65. At 10% annual returns, that dollar becomes $45. Every dollar you invest at 35 only has 30 years, so it becomes 17s. Every dollar at 45 only has 20 years, becomes $670. The same dollar invested at different ages has completely different outcomes. Starting at 25 versus 35 means each dollar you invest is worth 2.6 times more. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between a comfortable retirement and working until you die. And you don't need to be a stock market genius. Open a Roth IRA at Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. Takes 20 minutes. Set up automatic monthly contributions. Buy VTI, VTSAX, FXAX, or any total market index fund. That's it. You're done. You don't pick stocks. You don't try to time the market. You don't watch CNBC and panic when the market drops. You just consistently invest and let compound interest do what it's done for the past century. The fifth smart purchase is quality basics. For things you use daily instead of cheap crap you'll replace constantly. Specific categories: good shoes, a quality mattress, a reliable laptop, proper tools, kitchen equipment that lasts. Not luxury, quality. Perfect example: cheap work shoes cost $50, last 1 year. Quality leather shoes cost $180, last 6 years with basic care. Over 12 years, cheap shoes cost you $600, quality shoes cost $360. You save $240, and you get better comfort, better appearance, and less hassle. Same logic with mattresses. A $250 mattress lasts 2 years. A $1,000 mattress lasts 10 years. Over 10 years, you either spend $250 on cheap mattresses or $1,000 on one good one. But the bigger value isn't even the money. It's reducing decision fatigue and maintenance stress. When you own quality things that last, you're not constantly replacing broken items, dealing with crap that doesn't work right, or spending mental energy on, should I replace this or wait? Your life just functions better. And in your 20s, when you're building your career, that mental bandwidth matters. The key is knowing what's worth spending on. Spend on things you use every day. Shoes, mattress, laptop, winter coat, work bag. Don't spend on things that are purely for show. Designer clothes nobody cares about. Expensive watches that don't make you more money. Luxury furniture for an apartment you'll leave in 2 years. These are lifestyle inflation, not smart purchases. Your 20s are either the decade where you set yourself up for wealth or the decade where you lock yourself into permanent financial struggle. The difference isn't your salary, it's what you buy. A paid-off, reliable car instead of car payments saves you $4.7 million over your life. Skills training costing $200 generates $847,000 in extra career earnings. An emergency fund prevents you from turning $500 problems into $2,000 disasters. Starting to invest at 24 instead of 35 is worth having 2.6 times more money for every dollar invested. And buying quality basics saves you money while making your life actually work. None of this is complicated or requires you to be rich. It requires you to be intentional about where money goes. So here's your assignment. Pick one of these 5 and make it happen in the next 60 days. Don't have a paid-off car? Start saving. Haven't started investing? Open that IRA this week. No emergency fund? Build it. There's a skill that would boost your income? Learn it. Your future self will either thank you or hate you for what you do right now. Choose wisely. If this helped, like button. Want more on building real wealth? Subscribe. Comment which of these 5 you're starting with. I read all of them. I'm Mike. See you next one.